Hello and welcome. This is TVC News at 7. The Department of State Services, DSS, has uncovered a plot by suspected criminal gangs to attack worship and relaxation centers in parts of the country with improvised explosive devices, IEDs. A statement by the Public Relations Officer, Peter Afonaya, alerted Nigerians, stating that the DSS has received reports on cases of such incidents in some areas. He also explains that the objective is to launch further attacks on critical infrastructure and other public places frequently visited. Mr. Afonaya warned managers and owners of worship and relaxation centers to be cautious and implement basic security measures to deter the threat. The DSS assured that although these plans are aimed at putting fear in the mind of Nigerians, its officials will continue to disrupt the trend and pattern of violent attacks. Away from security, a federal high court has ordered the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal, Danladi Umar, to appear before the Senate for probe on allegations of misconduct brought against him in a public petition. The court dismissed Mr. Umar's suit instituted against the Senate and others seeking to stop them from investigating him over actions he took at Bandits Plaza in Abuja on the 29th of March 2021. Judiciary correspondent Celestine Area reports.
Justice Iyang Eko, in a judgment, held that the case of the CCT chairman lacked merit and there was no cogent reason to stop the Senate from undertaking its constitutional functions. He sought the interpretation of Section 88 and 89 of the Constitution by the court and for the court to give him protection or refuge. But the court insists that a public officer administering law relating to conduct for public officers, Mr. Morrow has no reason to institute a suit stopping the Senate from investigating a public petition seeking justice on moral standards. Furthermore, the Code of Conduct Bureau and the Code of Conduct Tribunal are established by an Act of the National Assembly 2010, and as such, he is subject to investigation by the National Assembly. The court in its findings also held that Section 2 of the Code of Conduct Bureau Act exposes Mr. Morrow to be investigated by the National Assembly more than any other Nigerian, and it would be illogical for him to stop the probe, as doing so would give an impression that he is above the law. The court held that the declarative relief sought by Mr. Morrow for an injunction against the Senate cannot be granted because his case lacked merit.
But what the court has done is to, embark on a voyage, go into the Code of Conduct Act, and that is, an inferior law compared to the Constitution. Provision of Section 88 is very, very clear that the purpose of investigation is to expose corruption. Okay? It is for the purpose of making law and exposure of corruption. But what the court has done is like, interpreting something that is not before the court. Well,
on 29 March 2021, a video of Mr. Morrow allegedly assaulting a security guard at Bandits Plaza in Abuja made rounds on social media. The former head of press and public relations of the Code of Conduct Tribunal, Ibrahim Al-Hassan, in a press statement on the incident, denied the allegation, insisting that it was Mr. Morrow that was assaulted by a group he referred to as Biafran Boys. Celestina Area, TVC News, Abuja.
Let's now turn our attention to the National Assembly, where legislative activities failed to resume at the House of Representatives after a 2-week Easter break. While the Senate resumed, the doors to the chambers of the House of Representatives remained locked, with a sergeant at arms nowhere in sight. National Assembly correspondent Joke Adisa reports.
A text statement on Monday indicated the representative lawmakers will not be sitting due to ongoing renovation of the complex. The renovation exercise was in response to the embarrassing situation which occurs in the complex, especially during the rainy season. The construction company to carry out renovation work on the complex had indicated it required 16 months. And the National Assembly management arranged that both chambers use committee rooms to conduct plenary. But while the 109 membership strength of the Senate is relatively manageable, That of the House, comprising 360 members, is not. Apart from the renovation exercise, which has yet to commence, the House lost one of its members over the Easter break. Nse Ekpeyong, until his death on Saturday, represented Oron Federal Constituency of Akwa Ibom State. The House of Representatives wing was practically deserted on Tuesday, with no member in sight. Several calls put across to many of the lawmakers were not answered, and the leadership is also yet to indicate when the doors of the chambers would be thrown open. Joke Adisa, TVC News, Abuja.
A bit of politics. Some aspirants for the Rivers State governorship election on the platform of the All Progressives Congress APC have raised the alarm over alleged plans to impose a candidate on the party. The controversy is over a consensus arrangement that led to the selection of one aspirant as the preferred flag bearer of the party. Senior reporter Uche Okoro has details.
Some members of the All Progressives Congress in Rivers State are concerned that the party has not learned lessons from the 2015 election which it lost and that of 2019 which it was disqualified from participating in. Aspirants like Senator Magnus Abe identified the problem as the APC's flawed process for selecting a candidate. Addressing his supporters in Okrika local government area, he insisted on contesting the primaries. For other leaders, the party must guard against fielding an unpopular candidate to forestall further crisis.
I will present myself to Rivers people. If Rivers people say that they don't want me and they want another partner, I will respect their decision. Because you have to choose the partner you know, the one that can help you, the one who understands you, the one who knows you is the one you should choose.
Once you use the right material, you will build and it will stand in Jesus' name. Amen. Let us not make any mistake about it. If I see my hand in my ear, if there is no magnet in APC, there will be no APC this time around.
At least 3 aspirants have indicated that they are still in the race to clinch the APC ticket. But there can only be one winner who needs the support of the entire party to succeed on the ballot. And so the challenge for the APC is for a candidate to emerge through a process that is accepted by all stakeholders.
For APC to succeed in this state, we must have a clear, transparent and honest process by which everybody who is entitled to have a say will genuinely have a say.
I heard from the bed that somebody have been adopted on the other side of the divide. May I ask, what is the electoral value? No. What is Magnus' value? 100%. We want to tell them they don't have electoral value.
The Rivers State chapter of the APC, for its part, says it has not chosen any consensus candidate and that all aspirants should be given equal opportunity to contest the party primaries. Uche Okoro, TVC News, Okrika.
The federal government has been advised to fully implement laws that will ensure that content creators make the most of their intellectual property. This came on the heels of a conference held to commemorate the Intellectual Property Day in Nigeria. TVC News correspondent Theophilus Selama reports.
Celebrating the vision and dynamism of young innovators and creators is the focus of this year's World Intellectual Property Day. The day, celebrated yearly in April, seeks to highlight the gains and limitations of intellectual property owners. Intellectual property theft and copyright infringement are said to be 2 demons that continue to torment Nigerian creatives and demean their craft. This formed part of discussions at this forum put together by the United States Mission in Nigeria.
Over half of Nigeria's estimated 215 million populace is under 19 years old. That is a lot of young people who will need good jobs, which intellectual property rights or IPR can help develop and provide.
Advancing intellectual property will be the driving force towards our march towards the economic development. Of course, as Nigerian economy expands and are more knowledge-driven, intellectual property will be expected to play even a greater role in driving this economic development.
The federal government of Nigeria is aware that there is a future in innovation amongst the youth and is presently doing a lot to encourage and create an enabling environment for innovation and creativity in the country. Presently, there is a bill at the National Assembly for Nigerian inventors and startups, known as the Nigerian Startup Bill.
Across the globe, young people are stepping up to innovation challenges, using their energy, ingenuity, and creativity to steer a course towards a better future. Guests here advise that once an idea is conceived and in the works, it's important to get it patented so as to forestall theft of intellectual property.
Patents, copyrights, trademarks, these things create huge number of job opportunities, especially in Nigeria, with its teeming youth population, which everybody has talked about already.
And every great company, every great concept begins with an idea, and if you have that idea, you have to protect it intellectually. Otherwise, somebody is going to take it.
We are also taking this more seriously, and we're trying to see how we can not only go for the jugular, but also try and cut off the supply chain of or the distribution chain of these markets.
In all, participants here believe more could be achieved if relevant laws that protect owners of intellectual property are implemented to its logical conclusion. Theophilus Ilama, TVC News, Lagos.
When the news returns, we'll be speaking with Executive Director, Lead Network, Chukwuma Okenwa, for more on the Intellectual Property Days. Earlier, we brought a report that today is a World Intellectual Property Day, and the calls are growing for the federal government to implement laws that will ensure content creators make the most of their intellectual property. I'm being joined at this time by Executive Director, Lead Network, Chukwuma Okenwa, for more on this discussion. Thank you for joining us on TVC News at 7. Again, the issue of intellectual property is staring us in the face. How exactly does it work? How does a content creator protect his or her work from infringement and theft?
Well, of course, from its very definition, intellectual property means two things. First, you talk about those creations of minds, which could come in forms of ideas, inventions, designs, and of course the laws that protect it, the laws that grants the legal right to either the inventor, to the designer, to whoever that is involved, and it comes in different forms are trademarks, patents, and of course you also have copyright for writers, musicians, and all the rest. But of course, one of the things that intellectual property suffers, just like every other property, is that it could be a victim of theft. You talk about intellectual theft in some forms of infringement, and when these things are unchecked, those inventors are discouraged because they lose the right over their job. Either they are not rightly recognized for coming up with these ideas, or they don't even earn from their ideas. Maybe like a situation where someone could publish a book and you have like some others, right? Like those that like see this as an industry, they engage in intellectual theft, and at the end of the day, you don't even end up earning for your ideas. But like getting back to your question, there are two ways. First and foremost, Nigeria is not one of the nations that is known to invest into largely into a developing of intellectual property. I mean, we are not even anywhere among the first 30 nations in terms of the world innovative nations in 2022. So there need to be a lot of critical investment. And then most importantly, the laws are not just enough, but educating people about these laws and as well as enforcing it. Because most persons that have been victims of intellectual theft are not even aware that there are provisions they can actually take it up and then get those tips to actually pay dearly for it. And I think a whole lot of orientation needs to be done about that. We need to begin to value it so that people can actually understand that if you don't own the land, you can actually gain in your mind or utilize the mind to achieve all that physical properties could not gain for you. And people must see this and treasure it just as much as we value physical property, so that we can begin to have more innovators, more inventors, more writers that can actually thrive on their originality and creativity.
Talking about innovators, the theme this year actually focuses on IP and young people, maximizing technology and being innovative. You spoke about the laws. How can we strengthen these laws to ensure that people's intellectual property are actually properly protected?
Of course, the laws are not just enough. The laws are only a provisions. And I can tell you in terms of like some wonderful laws as regards to intellectual property, Nigeria is not in short supply. But where the problem is in the enforcement. And of course, even the victims realizing and understanding that it is their right to actually demand that justice be done. Because lots of young person, and this come in different forms. Sometimes someone could submit a proposal to a big multinational, and they execute the idea and nothing happens. The person just end up, crying that you see your ideas, all over the place, and you don't gain any recognition, you don't gain any financial benefit. And it's quite discouraging, even for a nation like Nigeria, where we know that there is that innovative gap, especially when it has to do with the young persons. But most importantly, the government must lead the drive in demonstrating commitment and value for intellectual development and property by investing, by being very critical. Very intentional in making some of these investments. Very, very important.
It's not just about making the laws, it's about actually implementing the laws. Thank you very much for joining us at this time. Chuku Malkinwa, Director, Lead Network. Thank you for joining us on TVC News at 7. Thank you. Let's move on to some other matters. Following the seasonal climate prediction by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has called an interagency meeting of experts to analyze these predictions. This, according to NEMA, is to enable it to create the needed public awareness to mitigate disasters and maximize the predictions for economic growth where necessary. Moyo Thomas reports. We apologize for the abrupt end to that report. Elsewhere, the Delta State government has taken a swipe at the leadership of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, for misleading the public about the situation of things at the Delta State University, Abraka. The State Commissioner for Higher Education, Professor Patrick Buhari, wants the union to use universities in Delta as model when negotiating with the federal government. Ikenna Amechi has more.
Few days ago, the president of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, stated that Delta State University, which is not part of the ongoing strike, has no pension for staff and has no infrastructures except the ones built by TET Fund. The ASU president queried the establishment of 3 new universities by the state government.
There is no person who has retired from Delta State University, Abraka, that is today not on pension. I repeat, there is none. For death benefit and gratuity is 395 million naira. Just this last tranche that we did. I've done so many since I became commissioner in 2019. The two that all projects are TET Fund projects. No, TET Fund has very little presence in Delta State University, Abraka. Very, very little presence in Delta State University. And even that presence is not a favor. It is less than even a right, because we are contributory to the education tax fund. Delta State apologizes to no one for establishing the 3 universities because they were needed, not by the governor, but by the children of Delta State. And that staff of Delta State University are suffering. You see, the man suffering is saying that he wants to bail out the man who is enjoying. Who told him we are suffering?
Professor Buhari, who was once the chairman of ASU at the Delta State University, wants the union to use Delta State as a model for their future negotiations with the federal government, as the state government has implemented all that the union requested for.
for the federal university. Use Delta State University as a model. Because as soon as the figure for the end academic allowances came, what Delta State University did through the governing council, through the commissioner to the governor, was to split it into 12. So every month it is paid along with your salary. University at Agbo, the new university at Asaba, the new university at Ozoro is paying professors there higher than the University of Ibadan.
At all the 4 universities owned by Delta State government, academic activities have been going on unhindered as they have not joined in the nationwide industrial action by university staff, which is more than 2 months now with no end in sight. Ikenna Amechi, TVC News, Asaba.
In Ondo State, residents of an area of Akure have raised the alarm over the award of a 160-meter road construction project in the area instead of 7.3 the kilometers initially awarded by the federal government. The residents who staged a peaceful protest to vent their anger lamented that the identity of the contractor handling the project is shrouded in secrecy. Ayodeji Moradeyo reports.
Residents of Olufom area of Akure, the Ondo State capital, are angry, and this explains why they decided to vent their anger with this peaceful protest. They shunned their duty post to kick against construction of over 160 meters of road in the area, which is against the initial plan by the federal government. The placards in their hands and the song they chanted explain what they are passing through. With the identity of the contractor unknown to them, the residents are worried about the length of the road project and the shoddy job being executed.
Taking aback that could federal government approve 160 meters out of 7.3 kilometers, not even a kilometer. So we were very suspicious of the construction.
We want to bring it to the attention of the government that this road, that we know that the federal government cannot award a contract of 160 meters. It is impossible. We know that there are some people behind the sign that want to divert and bring the name of APC, the name of this government into ridicule.
They also lamented the substandard job being done in the area, hence they want investigation to be carried out.
Even the equipment they brought, they are substandard. They cannot even cross it because it will spoil. And they will say they've done road for Olufom. We don't want this type of road.
We don't want to be shortchanged. There are many questions that are begging for answers. As far as this work is concerned, we don't have anything. We don't even know the person that is doing this job.
Individuals that love the government, that have even been begging the government for construction all the time. So we need a full stretch of the 7.3 kilometers constructed.
The demand of residents of Olufom is simple. They want the federal government to investigate the contractor and in this project because they don't want to be shortchanged. Ayodeji Moradeyo, TVC News, Akure.
In the Ekpaja axis of Lagos State, tricycle operators also staged protests around Ekoro Road and command areas against the leadership of one Aziz Abiola. The protesters also said they preferred the ticketing system given them by the Lagos State Park Management against that of the National Union of Road Transport Workers, NURTW. They alleged that the ticket given them by the NURTW was too expensive and added that they were often subjected to beatings and molestation by union workers if they did not pay the levies. The operators said they paid over 4,000 naira per day to the NURTW compared to the more affordable 1,000 naira which they paid to the Lagos Park Management. They asked the Lagos State government to look into the matter and help come up with a solution. Let's now turn attention to Saudi Arabia, where Muslims are performing Umrah, the lesser pilgrimage, which involves paying a visit to the Holy Kaaba in Mecca. This year, the Kaaba is fuller than usual. Senior correspondent Adedoja Salam Adeni finds out why every Muslim wishes to be in Makkah during the month of Ramadan.
With Saudi Arabia opening the 2 holy mosques for foreign visitors in this Ramadan, Umrah seekers filled the Grand Mosque in Mecca and the Prophet's Mosque in Medina 2 years after they were temporarily shut due to COVID-19 pandemic.
After the pandemic, it's very surprising seeing this kind of crowd this year. Man, looking at it, is almost 6 million to 7 million for this Umrah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. This is very fantastic.
The performance of Umrah in the holy month of Ramadan makes the practice equivalent to Hajj. But Umrah cannot exempt one from the duty to perform Hajj, which is compulsory for every Muslim if the person is capable of performing it.
Everybody is eager to come here and pray. And as you see, it's the last day, last 10 days in the month of Ramadan, which is very significant with prayers. So that's why we are here. Many people from various countries, we all gathered here to offer prayers to Almighty Allah. So and we are also here, most Nigerians are also here. On our own part, we are here praying for our nation, praying for our state, and praying for our various local governments in the state.
Prophet Muhammad says in his traditions that whoever performs Umrah during Ramadan is like performing 70 Hajj rites, in the pillars of Islam, which now the Muslim community now decided, or the Muslim Ummah, they decided that performing Umrah during Ramadan is essential for them because of the reward that is encompasses in it.
Performing Umrah involves 4 important steps, which includes Ihram, wearing of white clothes, Tawaf around the Kaaba, the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Say, that is running between Mount Safa and Marwa, and cutting of hair. Meanwhile, about 1 million pilgrims around the world are expected to perform the 2022 Hajj, which comes in July.
Former Lagos State Governor Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has joined other Muslims to perform Umrah, the Lesser Hajj, in Saudi Arabia. The All Progressives Congress presidential aspirant concluded his prayers at the Prophet Muhammad Mosque in Medina and headed to the Grand Mosque in Mecca for Tawaf on Tuesday. He was accompanied by the former APC presidential candidate Malam Nuhu Ribadu and others. To address the wide-ranging needs of Nigeria and other crisis-ridden countries suffering from the impact of the Russia-Ukraine crisis amid the COVID-19 pandemic, the president of the World Bank Group, Mr. David Malpass, says the bank is working on a crisis response of around $170 billion in financing between April 2022 and June 2023. Speaking during his address to the Development Committee of this year's World Bank International Monetary Fund spring meetings, Mr. Malpass noted that the gathering is timely as it took place at a time of overlapping global crisis. According to the World Bank president, the project is modeled on the rapid surge in financing that the bank group provided in response to COVID-19, which provided $157 billion over a 15-month period to help countries address the health, economic, and social impacts of the pandemic. He, however, noted that economic recovery is at risk amid geopolitical tensions, with investment, trade, and growth affected, even as countries face further risk from the pandemic and uneven deployment of vaccines. Elsewhere, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says government is committed to scaling up its diversification drive against the backdrop of the Export for Survival campaign. He made this known during the National Conference on Non-Oil Export with the theme Export for Survival, Optimizing Nigeria's Non-Oil Export Potential. Lara Falayan reports.
A conference on non-oil export, the first of its kind in Nigeria. The motive behind this gathering is to dialogue on issues confronting the growth of non-oil export in Nigeria. This is with a view of finding lasting solutions. The Vice President says government understands the urgency of the times with regards to taking non-oil export more seriously.
We are determined to enhance the competitiveness of our businesses within what is poised to become one of the largest regional single markets in the world. And this is why our Export Development Fund, under the Nigeria Export Promotion Council, has committed 50 billion naira to help position the export-oriented Nigerian businesses.
The Nigerian Export Promotion Council hopes the talks at the conference will help scale up successes already recorded in areas of its existing interventions.
I'm, however, of the firm belief that this conference will serve as a platform for stakeholders to ventilate ideas and viewpoints on current and emerging issues affecting non-oil export, as well as articulate a harmonized position for achieving a sustainable non-oil export performance.
There is emphasis on value addition in attaining the country's non-oil export target, amid gains already seen as non-oil income now accounts for most of the country's revenue generation.
The federal government is deeply committed to diversifying the Nigerian economy with a view to stimulating the manufacturing sector and scaling up local production of made in Nigeria goods and services.
The ministry is actively implementing the national quality policy, which is meant to guide Nigeria as a country to build a sustainable quality infrastructure in order to make our products competitive in both the domestic and international markets.
Areas of concentration at this forum include innovative solutions, trade facilitation, financing, non-oil export value chains, sustainable markets, as well as strategic partnerships. This conference is coming on the heels of the Nigerian Export Promotion Council's launch of an Export for Survival campaign, which aims at creating more awareness on the importance of embracing non-oil exports as a critical part of the country's diversification drive and a means of earning more foreign exchange. Lara Folayo, TVC News, Abuja.
In its continued efforts aimed at accelerating installation of meters under the Meter Asset Provider Scheme MAPS, Ikeja Electric PLC says it is set to offer willing customers a one-day metering initiative where they can complete their Know Your Customer information and get metered within 24 hours. Speaking at the commencement of the first phase of the exercise at the Shomolu business unit of the company, the head of corporate communications, Mr. Felix Afulwe, explains that the program, which is being done in collaboration with Mojek International Limited, will serve as a platform for customers who want to make payment to ensure their premises are metered as soon as possible. He advised customers to take advantage of the initiative to get metered, as this will put an end to estimated billings and other electricity supply issues they are faced with. In the meantime, the Group Managing Director, Mojek International Holdings, Ms. Chantel Abdul, posited that the mobile map scheme is aimed at bringing the metering process closer to people's doorsteps.
The Meter Asset Provider program is unique in itself because it enables customers who can afford to pay for a meter and may not want to wait for the free metering program, but says, you know what, I can afford to pay for it, I want my meter immediately. It affords them that opportunity to get the meter quickly. We cannot overemphasize the importance of meters, and that's actually why we exist as a company, right? Mojek has set itself to provide meters to end users.
Most of these customers are delighted to have their meters, their prepaid meters, because yes, they can now manage their energy. They can decide on what they want to consume per month. There's this level of trust. They know they are paying for what they are consuming. So for that, because if my customer is satisfied, then I am satisfied. So with that, my customer is happy and I'm delighted.
The federal government says it has identified preferred and reserved bidders for 12 federal highways up for concession under the Highway Development and Management Initiative. Special Advisor on Communications to the Ministry of Works and Housing, Mr. Hakeem Bello, who made this known in a statement, disclosed that this development is based on the value-added concession request for proposal evaluation report presented and approved on the 21st of April 2022 at the Project Steering Committee meeting chaired by the Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola. He adds that the first phase of the value-added concession under the HDMI seeks to concession 12 economically viable road corridors to technically and financially capable private sector firms consortia. The 12 highways represent 1,963 kilometers, or 5.6% of Nigeria's 35,000 kilometers federal highways, which include Benin-Asaba, Abuja-Lokoja, Kano-Katsina, Onitsha-Wiriaba, Shagamu-Benin, and Abuja-Kefia-Kwanga highways. Others include Kano-Maiduguri, Kano-Shuari, Kano-Maiduguri-Potiskum-Damaturu, Lokoja-Benin, Enugu-Port Harcourt, Ilorin-Jeba, Lagos-Otabeokuta, and Lagos-Badagry-Seme-Border. The HDMI is a PPP initiative of the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing that seeks to attract sustainable investment and funding in the development of road infrastructure and maximizing the use of assets along the right-of-way of federal highways across the country. The stock market sustained positive trades as investors renewed interest in equities of companies. Effiong Ekop reports.
Securities trading has remained with positive numbers following increased stock picks by fund managers. Huge trade supports for Academy Press saw it netting gains by 10%. The gaining streak also helped the stocks of Champion Dairies, Mayor Paint, Nibeth Pharmaceuticals, and eTransact. The trade index grew by 0.02%, bringing over 6 billion naira into the markets. Multiverse, International Breweries, Cadbury, Japan Gold, and Honeyflower dropped prices and values due to losses. Over 400 million units of shares worth 7 billion naira were traded across market subsectors. Effiong Ekop, TVC News, Lagos.
Well, Asian shares bounced up today after a late revival on Wall Street, though global growth fears stoked by China's strict COVID-19 curbs and an expected streak of aggressive Federal Reserve tightening sapped risk appetite. MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan ticked up 1.1%, helped by China's blue chip index adding 1.4% after its worst day in 2 years on Monday. Hong Kong's benchmark Hang Seng Index bounced 1.9%. The tech sector relied 5.3%, boosted by mega firms such as Tencent Holdings and the Alibaba Group. News that Elon Musk, the world's richest man, had clinched a deal to buy Twitter for $44 billion cash also underpinned sentiment. The nervousness about China's economic slowdown, however, hit Australian shares, with the local benchmark down 2% by early afternoon, hurt particularly by declines in miners. Japan's Nikkei stock index pared earlier gains and was down 0.04% by early afternoon. U.S. stock futures were little changed in Asia trade. Oil prices on the international market bounced today, steadying after a sharp fall of 4% in the previous session, as worries over China's fuel demand were soothed by the central bank's pledge to support an economy hit by renewed COVID-19 curbs. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude recorded a price increase of 0.54% to hit $99.07 per barrel. Brent crude now sells at $103.10 per barrel, registering an upward price margin of 0.76%. Bonny Light's performance has lost some steam, recording a 6.46% drop in price to sell at $99.78 per barrel. For the OPEC basket, crude oil dealers offer $107.70 per barrel, with a price decline of 1.06%. Well, next on TVC News at 7 is Sports News.